A thin mist curled among the crystalline spires of Viridian's royal palace as Lieutenant Mara Hayes stepped through the gates. She had seen many worlds in her time, but none quite as strange or as beautiful as this. The palace gardens spread before her like a living painting, towering flower trees with bioluminescent blooms, pools of liquid silver that reflected the violet sky above, and statues carved from pale blue stone that seemed to breathe under the moonlight. Yet despite the beauty, something felt wrong. A trembling hush had fallen over the grounds as though the very air feared to speak. Mara glanced at her squad. Corporal Imani Brock's grip tightened on her plasma carbine, and Private Nikos Reed's eyes darted from shadow to shadow. They were part of the Earth Veritran Peace Corps, sent to guard the alien queen's compound after the treaty signing. In theory, it was a simple mission: remain visible, remain polite, and remain alive. In practice, tensions ran high between the Queen's people and the militant faction that opposed human presence. Rumors whispered of sabotage, of hidden mines in the palace walls. And now, weeks of polite smiles and formal greetings had yielded nothing but a fragile calm that threatened to shatter at any moment. The first sign of danger came when the central fountain, an intricate sculpture of glass blossoms, exploded in a shower of glittering shards. The blast was muffled, oddly distant, but the shockwave rolled across the courtyard like a silent storm. Silver water sprayed into the air, shimmering, before it rained down. Flora wilted in an instant, petals curling inward as if in fear. Shadowy figures darted into the broken corridors beyond. Mara barked orders. "Defensive formation, move to cover." Her voice echoed against the marble walls. Imani slid behind a fallen column. Nikos sprinted toward the palace hall. Mara sprinted after him, every sense on edge. She had trained for combat, but this was unlike anything she had faced on Earth. Here, the rules were unknown. Here, her enemies might wear the Queen's robes. A child's cry pierced the chaos. High, wet, desperate. Mara froze. No sound on Viridian was as unnatural as that. She scanned the debris-strewn path until she saw her. Huddled beneath a shattered archway was a small alien girl, no more than 7 Terran years old. Her skin was the pale lavender of morning mist. Her hair, fine silver filaments that glowed softly in the gloom. She clutched a tattered toy, a bundle of living vines woven into the shape of a bird. Her great eyes, a deep shade of amethyst, flickered with terror as she squeezed her small body into the corner. Mara knelt a careful pace away, hands raised in peace. "I'm Lieutenant Hayes of the Human Guard," she said softly. "I'm here to help." The girl's cry shuddered into a sob. She pressed herself farther back. Stay away," she warned in a tremulous voice that sounded like wind through chimes. Mara inched forward. "You're safe with me. I won't hurt you." Above them, the palace's ancient glass ceiling cracked. Dust and sparks rained down, and somewhere nearby, metal groaned as doors snapped shut. Mara judged their chances. They could run, but the child might be lost in the labyrinthine corridors. Or she could stay, and risk everything. Before she could decide, the little girl shook her head. With desperate strength, she hurled the vine bird at Mara's boots. The toy landed at her feet, vines unraveling like frightened snakes. Startled, Mara stumbled but stayed on her feet, her hand steady on the toy. The child bolted, her small legs a blur of motion. "No, don't chase me," she wailed. Mara rose and called after her, heart hammering. "I won't hurt you. Please let me help you." Somewhere deeper in the palace, a heavy footstep echoed, slow, deliberate. Mara risked a glance over her shoulder. Through a shattered window she saw them. 3 figures in dark armor, their helmets shaped like twin crescent moons. They moved with quiet purpose, rifles raised. Mara drew her pistol. She had only moments to act. She sprinted after the girl, calling out softly. Her boots slipped on fallen petals and glass. The little girl stumbled, but before Mara could reach her, a rifle crack rang out. A beam of violet energy sizzled through, the air striking a marble column that exploded into powder. Mara dived forward, her body crashing onto the ground just as the child fell to her knees, wailing. Breath ragged, Mara scrambled up. She had to protect this child. Rising, she leveled her pistol at the nearest figure. "Run!" she commanded, the girl as she fired. The blast hit armor plating with a dull clang, sending the soldier stumbling backward. The other two raised their weapons, taking aim. Mara's mind raced. She had no backup close enough. The Queen's elite guard might not arrive in time, but she couldn't leave the child. Summoning all her courage, she charged, firing again and again. The courtyard erupted in noise and motion. Amid the chaos, she saw the child, wide-eyed, terrified, rise to her feet and start running. Mara shouted, but the girl disappeared around a corner into the dark heart of the palace. Mara dashed after her, heedless of the enemy fire behind her. Her pulse screamed in her ears. She cornered the girl in a narrow hallway lined with glowing moss. The little one pressed her back against the wall, trembling. Mara lowered her weapon. "You're safe," she panted. "I'm not going to let them hurt you." The girl's eyes glistened with tears. She bit her lip, then closed her eyes and fainted. Mara caught her just in time. Cradling the limp body, she turned at the sound of approaching footsteps. Two more. Soldiers rounded the corridor, weapons ready. With no time to think, Mara pressed the girl to her chest and sprinted back the way she came, toward the shattered courtyard, and beyond it, to freedom. The night sky loomed, vast and indifferent, as human and alien fled together.
In that moment, Lieutenant Mara Hayes realized that her duty had changed forever. A soldier protected her charge, and that choice would echo across the galaxy, bringing human ingenuity, courage, and unexpected hope to a place on the brink of
war. Mara burst out of the shattered courtyard and raced beneath the palace's outer arches. The alien girl, still unconscious, rested against Mara's chest, her weight light but unsteady. The corridor ahead was faintly lit by glowing moss that clung to smooth stone, but the lights flickered with each distant explosion. Mara's heart pounded as she searched for a hiding place. She spotted a service door half buried in rubble. Without pausing, she ducked inside and slipped through just as enemy rifles barked down the hallway. The corridor beyond was narrow and unmarked, lined with pipes and valves that hissed softly. Mara pressed her back to the wall and closed her eyes, steadying her breath. The girl's breathing was shallow but steady. "Hang on," Mara whispered, brushing a lock of silver hair from the girl's forehead. "We'll find a safe spot." She eased the girl to the floor and checked her pulse. Warm, slow, good. Mara scanned the hallway. Two doors, one labeled Maintenance in Veritran script, the other plain metal. The maintenance door led to a small room full of tools and spare parts. She slipped inside and laid the girl on a stack of clean towels. Then Mara grabbed a towel to cover her shoulders. The soft fabric smelled like antiseptic and flowers. Mara crouched beside her. She needed water, food, and answers. The girl wore a small pendant, a tiny crystal that glowed faintly beneath her torn dress, clearly a sign of rank or family. Mara picked it up and examined it. The crystal pulsed once under her fingertips as if alive. It reminded her of a heartbeat. A distant tremor shook the pipes. Metal clanged somewhere nearby. Mara froze. Enemy boots marched down the hall. Voices, deep, angry, echoed. They spoke in clipped Veritran, but the tone was clear. They searched. Mara stashed the pendant in her pocket and edged behind a metal cabinet. She pulled her pistol from her belt. Though she knew how little a single weapon could do against trained soldiers, still she had to protect the child. The door clicked. Metal scraped. Mara held her breath. The lock turned slowly. Then footsteps passed by without stopping. Mara exhaled and closed her eyes for a second, relief flooding her chest. She turned, back to the girl. "You okay?" she murmured. The child's eyelids fluttered. She sighed and clutched the towel against her chest. Mara offered her water from a small canteen. The girl drank it carefully, then blinked at Mara with wide violet eyes. "Hey," Mara said gently. "I'm Mara. What's your name?" The girl swallowed and whispered, "Lyra." Mara smiled. "Lyra, it's good to meet you." Lyra's lip quivered. They They want me gone. Mara's mind raced. She had to get Lyra to safety and find the Queen. The treaty had promised mutual protection, but so far Veritran forces were overrun. If Lyra was the Queen's daughter, her life was worth 1,000 treaties. Mara stood and offered her hand. "We're leaving. Can you stand?" Lyra nodded and rose, clutching Mara's hand. Her legs wobbled, but Mara guided her to the door. They peered into the hallway. Empty. Mara led them past carts of spare parts and echoing vents until they reached a stairwell. She heard screams and distant metal crunching down below. They climbed silently, 2 flights of stairs, into a higher level of the palace. Here the corridors were wider, decorated with frescoes of Veritran ancestors, figures with 4 arms and long robes. The paint had cracked, but the images still held grace. Lyra paused by one painting, her small hand reaching out to touch the ghostly face of a woman. Mara watched her, sadness in her eyes. "Do you know her?" Mara asked. Lyra shook her head. "Great-grandmother, maybe," she said softly. "She watches us." Mara squeezed her hand. They rounded a corner into a larger chamber, an unused banquet hall, its long tables overturned and strewn with luxury foods now spoiled. A pool of spilled red liquid glistened on the floor. Silver dishes lay broken. The hall smelled of rot and fear. Mara set Lyra down gently. "Stay here," she whispered, scanning the room. "I'll find us a way out." Mara moved toward a side. Doctor labeled service exit. It led to a balcony overlooking the palace grounds. The moonlight gleamed on shattered tiles outside. Mara risked a glance. Enemy patrols milled below. She needed another route. A hidden panel in the wall caught her eye, an emergency hatch. She pried it open and found a narrow ladder that led downward, too dark and tight for 2. Mara hesitated, then returned to Lyra. "We'll go through here," she said, pointing to the ballroom's back door, half hidden behind curtains. "Stay behind me." Lyra nodded and followed closely. Mara eased the door open. Fresh air whipped in, carrying the scent of night-blooming flowers. They stepped into a garden terrace overgrown with vines. Moonlight revealed a path through dense foliage leading away from the palace. Mara led them into the undergrowth. Branches scraped against her armor as she guided Lyra past hedges taller than both of them. The night was alive with strange insects and soft animal calls. Mara's ears tuned to every rustle. She found a narrow opening in the hedges and pushed through, emerging on a gravel road that led downhill. Below, she saw a cluster of service vehicles, but they were scorched or overturned, useless. The enemy had cut off all obvious escapes. Mara crouched beside Lyra. "We need to stay hidden and find your mother. She'll know what to do." Lyra's eyes shone with fear and hope. "Promise?" Mara nodded. "I promise." They moved along the road, keeping to the shadows. Mara scanned the horizon. The city lights of the palace grounds flickered in the distance, and beyond that, the great silver sea. Somewhere on those waters floated the Queen's flagship, the only safe place. Now, if they could reach it, Lyra would be protected, and Mara could defend her from any danger. Mara recalled a secret landing cove on the palace's east side, used for royal shuttles. It was guarded by heavy doors, but perhaps still intact. She guided Lyra toward the path that led there, careful to avoid patrols of armed figures with crescent helmets. Each time they passed a searchlight, they flattened themselves into bushes until it passed. Lyra trembled but pressed on. After what felt like hours, they reached a cliff path overlooking the sea. The old stone steps spiraled down to a hidden cove. Below, the waves lapped against the cliffs, gentle in the moonlight. At the water's edge, a small hoverboat bobbed, its engines silent. Mara knelt beside Lyra. "This will take us to the flagship," she explained. "But it only holds 2. Help me start it, okay?" Lyra placed her small hands on the control panel. Mara showed her which switches to flip. The engines hummed as they powered up. Mara helped Lyra climb into the cockpit and settled beside her. Together they lifted off, gliding over the dark sea toward the distant shape of a massive ship. As the cove disappeared behind them, Mara glanced at Lyra, who watched the wake glow faintly in the moonlight. For the first time since the attack, Lyra's face relaxed into a small smile. Mara reached out and squeezed her hand. "We'll get there," she said softly. "Stay brave." Lyra nodded, eyes fixed on the stars ahead. And in that moment, soldier and princess forged a bond bound by courage and trust, a bond that would shape the fate of two worlds. The hoverboat skimmed just above the black water, its engines whispering against the night breeze. "Lieutenant." Mara Hayes guided their craft toward the looming silhouette of the Queen's flagship, the Amaranthine Dawn. Clouds drifted across the moon, momentarily cloaking the vast vessel in darkness before revealing its gleaming hull once more. Lyra pressed her forehead to the transparent canopy, eyes wide with wonder and relief. Mara kept one hand on the throttle and the other gently on Lyra's shoulder. "Almost there," she whispered. "Stay close." The girl nodded, her small fingers curling around Mara's forearm. The storm of fear that had driven them from the palace faded with each meter they covered. Now, only hope lay before them. A searchlight snapped on above the deck of the Dawn, sweeping across the sea. Mara dipped the nose of the boat, dropping beneath its beam. Lyra's heart pounded as torrents of light passed overhead, but Mara steered them true, weaving through towering struts and support beams until they reached a hidden docking bay carved into the ship's underbelly. The engines cut out with a soft click. Mara and Lyra climbed onto the platform and were met by two armed guards in ceremonial armor, sleek silver breastplates etched with the Queen's sigil. Their faces were unreadable behind their helmets, but their posture was respectful. A tall officer stepped forward, his voice calm. "Lieutenant Hayes, we have been expecting you." He extended a gloved hand to Mara. "You have done more than duty tonight. The princess is safe because of you." Mara bowed her head. "Thank you, sir. But the palace is under attack. Militant forces are still loose." The officer's expression darkened. "We are aware. His Majesty's fleet will protect the city soon. But first, we ensure the princess's safety." He turned and signaled, and the guards led Mara and Lyra through a series of corridors lit by soft blue lights. The walls hummed with energy as they passed rows of staterooms and command centers. Everywhere crew members stood at attention as the princess was carried through. They reached a grand chamber at the heart of the ship. Crystal chandeliers floated near the ceiling, casting gentle patterns on polished floors. At the center sat the Queen's throne, a high-backed seat of argent metal and glass, its cushions of deep violet silk. Atop it sat the Queen herself, regal, even in worry. Her skin shimmered like molten moonlight and her hair lay in a silver cascade that pooled around her knees. Despite her calm bearing, her hands trembled as she rose to meet them. "Mother," Lyra breathed and rushed forward. The Queen caught her daughter in a fierce embrace, tears glistening in her violet eyes. Mara stepped back respectfully. The Queen turned to her, her gaze intense and ancient. "Lieutenant Mara Hayes," she said, her voice melodic yet solemn. "You have risked your life for my child. You have my eternal gratitude." Tears brimming, Mara knelt. "Your Majesty, I only did what any soldier would. But there are many threats still in the palace. I can help drive them out." The Queen's lips curved in a sad smile. "Your courage honors your world. But tonight, I offer you something more fitting." She raised a hand, and beside her, a small pedestal materialized from the air. Upon it rested a crystalline orb, swirling with threads of violet and silver light. Mara's breath caught. "Your gift," the Queen nodded. "This is the heart of Viridian, the source of our city's life and balance. It chooses its bearer. Place your hand upon it, and let it speak." Mara approached, every heartbeat thundering in her ears. She knelt and laid her palm on the orb's smooth surface. Warmth flooded up her arm, like sunlight through chilled leaves. Visions flickered behind her eyelids. The birth of the planet, the harmony of its people, the promise of unity between worlds. She saw Lyra's frightened face, then her mother's regal stance. She felt the hopes of an entire civilization pressing on her heart. When she opened her eyes, the orb had dimmed to a steady glow. Quiet filled the chamber. The queen regarded Mara with reverence. "You are chosen," she announced. "By ancient right the heart binds to you. You now carry Viridian's blessing." Mara rose, feeling a gentle thrum at her chest, as though the orb's power had nestled inside her. She understood then. This was no mere artifact. It was a living bond, connecting her will to the life of the planet. It would strengthen her, guide her, and share with her the brilliance of Viridian itself. The queen waved her hand, and the orb lifted from Mara's grasp, spinning slowly before settling into a harness that clipped onto Mara's armor. The chamber brightened as its glow spread through the walls. Crew members bowed as Mara passed. Lyra tugged at Mara's sleeve and looked up with awe. "Will it help us save the palace?" she asked. Mara knelt to meet her eyes. "Yes, Lyra. Together we'll bring it back from those who wish to destroy it." She stood and saluted the queen. "We leave at once." "Go with my blessing," the queen replied, voice firm. "And may our worlds stand together, now and always." Mara and Lyra followed the tall officer back to the docking bay where the hoverboat waited. Mara climbed in first, then helped Lyra settle beside her. The engines roared to life as they ascended into the moonlit sky. Below, the palace rode in flames and smoke, but Mara felt no fear. The heart of Viridian pulsed against her armor, filling her with steady strength. They flew low over the city's rooftops, weaving between spired towers and broken bridges. Rebel forces roamed the streets, but as the orb's glow washed over them, many hesitated, shields flickering in confusion. Mara targeted communications towers with precise plasma bursts, jamming the militant signals so Veritran loyalists could regroup. Every time she fired, the orb surged, amplifying her aim and focus. Lyra watched in wonder. "Your hand, Lieutenant," she whispered. "Press the button." Mara nodded and flipped a switch on the orb's harness. A wave of violet light rippled outward, passing over damaged buildings and blocked streets. Wherever it touched, fires dampened, debris cleared, and frightened citizens stirred with renewed courage. Veritran guards regrouped under the orb's influence, their morale lifted. Rebel armor buckled under the power, as if the planet itself rejected their violence. Within minutes, Veritran forces rallied and forced the militants to retreat. The palace gates reopened as the Queen's guards marched in, driven by hope and unity. Mara landed the hoverboat and guided Lyra ashore, both of them bathed in the orb's gentle light. The grateful Queen and her council awaited them at the palace entrance. Citizens cheered, their voices rising in a chorus of relief and joy. Mara knelt once more before the Queen, but this time with a smile playing on her lips. "I could not have done it without you," Mara said, glancing at Lyra. The Queen placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "You acted with bravery and compassion, true human virtues. You have not only saved my daughter, but restored faith in our alliance." Lyra ran forward and hugged Mara's leg. "Thank you," she said simply. Mara laughed softly and lifted the girl into her arms. The Queen watched, pride and gratitude shining in her eyes. "Lieutenant Hayes," she proclaimed to the crowd, "is hereby named Protector of Viridian. May her name be remembered among our greatest heroes." As cheers echoed, Mara realized that her journey had changed both worlds forever. The bond of the heart linked her soul to a planet she had only just begun to know, and with it came a promise. Human ingenuity and alien wonder united to forge a brighter future. The dawn light glimmered on Viridian's rebuilt towers as Lieutenant Mara Hayes walked through the palace courtyard, the heart of Viridian humming softly at her side. Beside her, Princess Lyra skipped lightly, her earlier fear replaced by curiosity. Servants cleared debris, and grateful citizens offered respectful bows. Word of Mara's heroism had spread like wildfire. Humans and Veritrans mingled with awed excitement, eager to witness the bond between the worlds. Yet beneath the jubilation, tension lingered. Rebel cells still lurked in the city's underbelly, and the Queen's Council debated how best to ensure lasting peace. Mara had been invited to the High Council chamber, a rare honor for an outsider. As she climbed the grand staircase, Lyra, holding her hand, Mara felt the weight of responsibility settle firmly on her shoulders. Inside the chamber, Veritran nobles sat in polished semicircles beneath domed ceilings, studded with star-patterned mosaics. The Queen presided at the center, regal in robes of midnight blue. Counselors whispered among themselves, some casting wary glances at Mara's uniform. She and Lyra took seats on a raised dais beside the Queen. The Queen's voice rang clear. "Thanks to Lieutenant Hayes, my daughter lives and our people stand united once more. Yet our world remains scarred. We must decide how to heal it and how to welcome our human allies into our future." A tall counselor with stern features rose first. "Your Majesty, while we honor our Savior, we cannot ignore the risk of human influence. Their power helped us, yes, but what if they one day turn against us?" Mara inhaled calmly. She had anticipated suspicion. "I understand your concern," she said, her voice steady but sincere. "But humans seek cooperation, not conquest. I risked my life for Lyra because I believe in protecting the innocent, regardless of race or planet. My world stands ready to help Viridian rebuild, not to dominate." Another counselor, younger and with soft silver hair, spoke next. "We have seen your actions, Lieutenant. The heart of Viridian chose you. That bond cannot be broken. We propose a council of joint guardians, human and Veritran, to oversee peace and recovery." A murmur rippled through the chamber. The Queen nodded slowly. A wise suggestion. "However, we must also address the remnants of the rebellion. They hide among our poor and disgruntled. We need a plan that heals the grievances that fueled their uprising." Lyra tugged Mara's sleeve and whispered, "How can I help, Lieutenant?" Mara smiled at her bravery. Before replying, she rose fully and faced the council. "In my experience," Mara said, "conflict often stems from fear and neglect. If we rebuild only the palace and streets but ignore the needs of everyday people, resentment will grow. We should establish reconstruction hubs in every district, places that offer food, medical care, education, and employment. Humans can share our expertise in engineering and governance, but Veritrans must lead, so the people feel ownership." She paused, letting her words sink in. "And we must reach out to former rebels, offer amnesty in exchange for service in rebuilding efforts. Show them the alliance means opportunity, not punishment." Silence settled. Then the Queen spoke, her tone approving. "Suggestion accepted. We will establish reconstruction hubs and extend amnesty under strict conditions. Lieutenant Hayes, you will advise us on these programs." Mara bowed her head. Lyra beamed. The counselors exchanged glances, some skeptical, some hopeful. After the meeting, Mara and Lyra walked through the palace's outer gardens, now lush with new planting. Counselors bustled past, organizing construction squads. Mara paused by a bubbling fountain where water shimmered in the morning sun. Lyra skipped ahead and plucked a violet flower from a hedge. She handed it to Mara. "Thank you," the princess said softly, "for saving me and for helping my people." Mara knelt and took Lyra's hand. "You saved me too, Lyra. You showed me what's worth fighting for." They heard a distant horn. This time it was not a warning. It was a call to celebration. Trumpets echoed as human and Veritran engineers paraded new construction vehicles into the square, marking the start of rebuilding efforts. Mara straightened and allowed herself a small smile. That evening, the Queen hosted a banquet in Mara's honor. Long tables groaned beneath Veritran delicacies, fragrant spiced fruits, crystalline pastries that melted on the tongue, and rare starfish caught in the palace's silver lakes. Mara sat between Lyra and the Queen, surrounded by honored guests. Despite the grandeur, Mara found herself thinking of the reconstruction hubs and the people waiting for real help, not lavish feasts. Midway through dinner, a young engineer approached Mara quietly. "Lieutenant, we found something," he whispered, handing her a datapad. "An encrypted message from the rebel leader, Acthar. He's planning a strike on the largest hub in 3 nights." Mara's face darkened. She nodded, excusing herself politely. Leaning close, she whispered to the Queen, "Your Majesty, the rebellion lives. We must act swiftly." The Queen's expression turned grave. "Find Acthar," she ordered. "Bring him to justice, or bring him to peace." Mara slipped away and summoned a small team of human and Veritran guards. Together, they pored over the datapad. Acthar's plan targeted the first hub on its opening night, when citizens would gather for supplies and aid. If he succeeded, the Alliance would face a blow as devastating as the palace attack. Mara formulated a counterplan. They would fortify the hub discreetly, station trusted militia inside, and lure Acthar's forces into a captured bunker beneath the district. Once his main force was trapped, they would offer safe parole and immediate work in the hubs. The goal was to neutralize violence with compassion and to demonstrate the promise of cooperation. As midnight approached, Mara and her team reached the hub location, an abandoned warehouse converted into a community center. Lanterns glowed along the streets, beckoning residents. Warriors in plain clothes slipped into the building. Mara and Lyra watched from the shadows. Lyra's small hand gripped Mara's arm, eyes wide. "Are you scared?" Mara asked softly. Lyra shook her head. "No, I know you'll protect them." Mara ruffled her hair. "You're braver than most adults." Inside, citizens lined up for water and medical checkups. Just as Acthar had planned, a group of armed rebels cut through the crowd, brandishing weapons. Alarmed murmur swept through. Mara held up a hand, and the heart of Viridian flared once more, its light rippling through the building. The rebels froze, shields flickering in the orb's glow. Mara and her guards moved in quickly, sealing exits. The rebels found themselves trapped, panic rising. Mara strode forward. "Acthar," she called. A tall man with fierce eyes stepped from the group. "You promised no more bloodshed." Acthar's gaze flicked to Lyra and the hungry families behind her. He hesitated. Mara pressed her advantage. "Join the hubs," she urged. "Work alongside us. Feed your people with dignity. End this cycle of violence." For a long moment, silence. Then Acthar lowered his weapon. Rebel fighters echoed his action, dropping their arms. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the hall. Guards secured the perimeter. Mara approached Acthar and offered her hand, Veritran and human, alike watching in stunned awe. He looked at her hand, then at Lyra's trusting face, and finally clasped her fingers. The building erupted in cautious applause. Outside, lanterns lit brighter, as if the city itself celebrated this turning point. Mara released Acthar's hand and turned to Lyra. The princess smiled, her eyes reflecting hope and renewal. In that moment, Mara realized true peace required both steel and a gentle hand, courage and compassion in equal measure. And as long as humans and Veritrans worked together, the galaxy would learn to fear not the whisper of human, but to honor and embrace it. Morning sunlight filtered through stained glass windows as Mara Hayes walked alongside Princess Lyra toward the newly reopened reconstruction hub in the Emerald District. The streets hummed with activity. Volunteers painted murals on crumbling walls, engineers installed clean water pumps, and children chased mechanical drones shaped like dragonflies. The heart of Viridian glowed faintly at Mara's side, its presence a comforting warmth. Lyra skipped ahead, greeting every worker with a bright smile. "Lieutenant, look," she called, pointing to a group of former rebels repairing a collapsed bridge. Their uniforms still bore ragged patches, but their faces shone with purpose rather than anger. Mara nodded. "This is what we dreamed of." They entered the hub's central hall, a spacious room now lined with shelves of food, medical stations, and work tables. Citizens filed in, receiving supplies and instructions for rebuilding projects. Mara and Lyra took seats on a low platform, at the front where Queen Soraya and council members would hold today's forum. Queen Soraya ascended the dais, her royal presence filling the room. She smiled at Mara. "Thank you for bringing hope to our people." Mara met her gaze. "It's an honor, Your Majesty." The Queen addressed the crowd. "Today marks the first of many gatherings where all Veritrans and our human allies will share ideas and shape our future together. Speak freely. Your voices matter more than ever." The first speaker was a teacher named Ennis whose school had been destroyed. "With this hub, my students finally have a place to learn again. I propose mobile classrooms that travel to remote communities." His idea drew nods and applause. Next, a former soldier named Terrell approached. "I fought against humans, thinking they came to take our land. Now I see they came to build with us. I volunteer to lead security groups to protect these hubs from any remaining militants." More applause. Lyra raised her hand shyly. The Queen nodded. "Yes, Princess?" Lyra stepped forward and handed Mara a small sketchbook. "I drew a map of the garden by the palace and some ideas for paths and benches where people can rest." The crowd murmured in delight at the princess's thoughtfulness. Mara hugged Lyra and presented the map to Queen Soraya. "A wonderful idea for healing, Your Majesty." The Queen studied the map, then announced, "We will create the celestial gardens in every district inspired by these designs. A place where people can come together in peace." As the forum ended, Mara and Lyra moved through the hub, helping distribute supplies. Mara paused at the entrance where a delegation of human engineers arrived, carrying advanced tools and blueprints. They saluted Mara, grateful for her leadership. One engineer, Dr. Luis Ortega, approached. "Lieutenant, the power core we installed last night is stable, but we need your help negotiating access routes with local patrols." Mara nodded. "Lead the way." She accompanied the engineers outside. As they crossed the street, a siren wailed. Nearby, a transport loaded with medical supplies had overturned in a narrow alley, blocking traffic. A crowd gathered, and panic flickered as rumors of a rebel ambush spread. Mara sprinted forward. "Clear the area," she ordered. Calm descended under her command. Rebels had disguised themselves among the bystanders, but the orb's glow from the heart pulsed, revealing those whose shields flickered unnaturally. Security forces moved in, detaining the saboteurs. Mara helped victims to safety and directed medics to the injured. After the danger passed, citizens cheered. A local elder, Tevra, approached Mara. "You saved us again. You are not just a soldier, you are family." She pressed a woven bracelet into Mara's hand, colored with green and silver threads. "A token of our gratitude." Mara accepted it, touched. "Thank you. I will wear it with pride." They reached the engineer's staging area. Lyra held Mara's hand. "Lieutenant, do you think we can finish all 7 hubs before winter?" Mara looked at the blueprints and at the smiling faces around them. "Together, we can do anything." That evening, under a sky painted with twin moons, Mara met with Queen Soraya in the palace's war room. Holographic maps hovered above the table, displaying the city's districts and progress metrics. The Queen's advisors offered updates. 4 hubs operational, 2 nearing completion, and the final site requiring additional security. Mara suggested placing joint human Veritran patrols at the 7th location, where rebel sympathies ran deepest. "We need to win hearts there," she explained. "Show them what cooperation can achieve." The Queen nodded. "Then we will send humans and locals together, under Lyra's leadership if she wishes." Lyra had followed them quietly, her violet eyes shining. "I want to help there too," she said softly. The Queen smiled. "As you wish, Princess." Mara felt a swell of pride. The bond between human and alien was stronger than ever. She placed a hand on the orb's harness. "Let's prepare," she said. "Tomorrow we bring light to the darkest district." Outside, The city lay silent beneath the glowing moons, yet its heartbeat thrummed with newfound unity. And Mara Hayes, soldier of Earth and protector of Viridian, stood ready to lead, her courage and compassion shining like a beacon across the galaxy. Before dawn, Mara Hayes, Princess Lyra, and a small team of human engineers and Veritran volunteers set out for the Ironhold district, the poorest quarter of the city and the last place anyone expected hope. Broken walkways and collapsed buildings lined its narrow streets. The sky above Ironhold was always tinged with dust, as if the district itself carried the grief of its people. Mara surveyed the scene from a low ridge. "This is our toughest challenge," she told Lyra. The princess nodded, clutching the woven bracelet on her wrist. Behind them, uniformed workers unloaded supplies, food packets, water filters, medical kits, and construction tools. Human and Veritran patrols moved through the alleyways, offering directions and ensuring no rebels remained hidden. Lyra stepped forward, raising her voice so all could hear. "Friends of Ironhold," she called, "we have come to build with you, not for you. Together we will restore your homes, your lives, and your pride." No one answered at first. Then an old woman with silver hair and weary eyes stepped from the shadows. "Words are wind," she said, voice rough. "You saved my daughter's life, but can you save our futures?" Mara approached her slowly. "We will prove it," she promised. She motioned to the engineers. "Let's begin." Volunteers spread out, clearing rubble by hand. Mara and Lyra joined a group lifting a fallen beam. The princess laughed as she found the strength to brace it steady. Mara offered guidance, marking safe paths for heavy machinery. The heart of Viridian hummed, its gentle pulse empowering tired arms and weary spirits. Whenever its light touched, broken walls, small cracks healed, stones realigned, as if the city itself cooperated. By midday, a temporary shelter stood at the district's heart, a sturdy frame of metal and glass procured from the amaranthine dawn. Inside, families received warm soup and clean water. Children once listless, chased after mechanical helpers that delivered meals. Laughter echoed down alleys for the first time in weeks. Yet as progress spread, a tense silence hung over one long street. Mara spotted a group of armed figures, rebels disguised as workers, huddled in a shallow tunnel beneath a collapsed arch. Their leader, Akthor, confronted Mara with guarded eyes. Lyra ran to her side. "Lieutenant Hayes," Akthor greeted. "Did you think you could win Ironhold so easily?" Mara stepped forward. "This district has waited too long. People deserve help, not hollow promises." A sneer crossed Akthor's face. "Help has strings. You brought the Queen's soldiers here to control us." He waved his hand. "Look around, you will soon have armed garrisons in every corner." The rebel fighters tapped their rifles, tension snapping in the air. Lyra gripped Mara's sleeve. "They made the same threats before," Mara said softly. "Trust grows with actions, not words." Mara raised her hand so the heart's glow would wash over them. The orb pulsed, sending a soft violet wave along the street. Vegetation sprouted from cracked stone, blossoming into small flowers. The rebels hesitated, shields flickering under the light. The ancient bond between planet and protector shone visible. Mara lowered her hand. "We're here to rebuild Ironhold, together. No garrisons, no control, only cooperation." She pointed to the shelter behind her. "Let them enter and receive aid. If they refuse, we will listen to their concerns. We will address every fear." Silence reigned as the rebels exchanged glances. Then Akthor nodded slowly. "Very well, Hayes. I will give you this chance. But if you break your promise..." His voice trailed off as more families emerged from the streets, carrying buckets of water and sharing small smiles with the volunteers. Akthor stepped aside, allowing them to pass. One by one, the rebel fighters holstered their weapons and walked into the shelter. Lyra led them inside with gentle words, offering soup bowls and clean water flasks. Mara stayed outside, guiding workers as they cleared debris and erected scaffolding. All afternoon they toiled side by side, human, Veritran, and former rebel. Mara watched as Acthar helped shore up a weakened wall, sweat gleaming on his brow. The fierce soldier's face softened each time a child ran past to hug his legs. Lyra danced among the helpers, her laughter a bright thread binding them together as evening approached. The shelter had become a buzzing center of activity. Families returned to their restored homes for the first time in weeks. Lanterns lit the streets, casting warm circles of light. Mara walked through Ironhold, touching walls that once threatened to collapse, now sturdy and painted with hopeful murals. The heart of Viridian glowed in response, guiding her steps. At the district's highest point, a small plaza stood, overlooked by crumbling statues. Mara and Acthar climbed the broken steps together. She turned to him. "Thank you for trusting us today." He met her gaze. "You risked everything for us. I feared your power would enslave us. Now I see it can set us free." Mara offered her hand. Acthar hesitated, then shook it firmly. "Let this mark a new era," she said. Below, Ironhold citizens gathered to hear Lyra's words at a makeshift podium. Mara and Acthar descended to join them. The princess spoke of unity, of rebuilding not just walls but hearts. She invited volunteers from every race and planet to work there, side by side. Her voice rang clear with the promise of a future forged together. Tears glistened in many eyes, hope, relief, and gratitude. Mara watched as families embraced, strangers held hands, and former enemies shared food. The dust of Ironhold settled, replaced by the glow of community spirit. That night, under a sky sprinkled with stars, Ironhold's plaza became a place of celebration. Music from human instruments blended with Veritran chimes. Lanterns floated into the sky, each carrying a wish for peace. Mara released one herself, writing unity on its paper sail. Lyra released another, inscribed with friendship. As the lanterns drifted upward, Mara felt the heart's glow strengthen, its power woven into the district's rebirth. She stood beside Lyra and Acthar, joined by humans and Veritrans in a circle of unity. Mara whispered, "This is only the beginning." Lyra nodded, eyes shining. Acthar placed a hand on Mara's shoulder. "With you, we will rise from the ashes." And high above, the twin moons watched over a world transformed by courage, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between earth and star. Morning broke over Viridian in gentle gold and violet hues. The city stirred with new purpose. Across the reconstructed districts, children ran to learn, workers gathered to build, and citizens paused in their tasks to greet one another with smiles. At the palace, flags of Earth and Viridian fluttered side by side, a symbol of the alliance that had grown from crisis to enduring friendship. Lieutenant Mara Hayes stood on the throne balcony beside Queen Soraya and Princess Lyra. Below them, a grand plaza hosted the first Unity Festival. Stalls offered Veritran delicacies and earth-made trinkets. Musicians tuned instruments, human strings blended with alien wind chimes. An excited crowd filled every corner, their voices rising like a single hopeful heartbeat. Mara glanced at Lyra, who wore a simple dress of pale lavender. The princess reflected the light like a living jewel. Lyra squeezed Mara's hand. "Thank you for everything," she whispered. Mara smiled. "Thank you for trusting me." Queen Soraya stepped forward and raised her arms. "People of Viridian, citizens of Earth, today we celebrate not only our survival but our unity. Let this festival mark the beginning of our shared tomorrow." Cheers erupted. Mara felt the heart of Viridian thrum, its glow unfurling across the plaza as if the planet itself joined the celebration. Later, Mara led Lyra to a quiet garden terrace at the palace's edge. Silver paths wound through fragrant flower beds. A gentle fountain murmured at its center. The day's excitement still echoed distantly, but here peace reigned. Lyra sat on a stone bench, her gaze on the twin moons. "I never imagined I'd see my world so full of life again," she said softly. Mara knelt beside her. "You brought us together, Lyra. Your courage lit the way. The princess offered a shy smile. But you carried me when I couldn't walk, alone. Mara brushed a strand of hair from Lyra's face. We saved each other. Across the city, rebels-turned-builders laid the final stones of a new bridge connecting the palace to the Ironhold district. Acther supervised the work with skilled hands. He paused to watch a group of children cross, their laughter ringing out. He nodded to his fellow workers, pride shining in his eyes. Who would have thought, he murmured, that a human soldier could change everything? Beside him, a former rebel named Maya placed a wreath of native flowers on a nearby statue. She did more than protect a princess, Maya said. She protected all of us. Acther touched the wreath gently, then looked toward the palace. May her name be remembered in our songs, he added. In the palace's Grand Council Hall, human and Veritran leaders gathered for the first official diplomatic summit. Holographic maps displayed joint projects, trade routes, research centers, and environmental restoration zones. Mara, now honored as protector of Viridian, took her place among ambassadors from Earth and beyond. Queen Soraya addressed the assembly. This council stands as proof that two worlds can grow stronger together. Let us commit to open dialogue, shared knowledge, and mutual respect. Applause filled the chamber. Mara felt a rush of hope. The future lay wide open, waiting for them to shape it. That evening, under the soft glow of lanterns in the palace gardens, Mara prepared to depart. Her assignment on Viridian had officially ended, but her bond with the planet would last forever. Lyra handed her a small crystal vial filled with violet-hued nectar. A gift for you, Lieutenant, the princess said. Tastes like home. Mara accepted the vial. I'll treasure it always. Queen Soraya approached, placing a hand on Mara's shoulder. You are welcome here whenever you wish. Viridian is your second home. Mara bowed deeply. Thank you, Your Majesty. I hope to return one day. At the landing pad, the hoverboat waited beneath the rising twin moons. Mara carried her pack and the crystal vial. Lyra ran forward and embraced her tightly. Goodbye, the princess whispered, voice thick with emotion. Mara hugged her back. Goodbye, Lyra. Stay brave and keep building. They parted as tears glistened in both their eyes. Mara climbed into the boat and settled behind the controls. The engines hummed to life, and the craft lifted gently. From the garden terrace, Lyra and Queen Soraya watched as Mara's boat rose into the sky. The heart of Viridian glowed faintly on Mara's armor, a steadfast beacon guiding her way. As the hoverboat crossed the sea, Mara looked back at Viridian's shining surface. Cities renewed, forests regrowing, lakes as clear as glass. She tasted the nectar from the vial. Its sweet warmth reminded her of hope, friendship, and the bonds of unity. Mara whispered to herself, We did it. Above her, the twin moons shone like watchful guardians. Below, a world healed by courage and compassion stretched out in every direction. Mara set a course for Earth, but her heart stayed on Viridian, with its queen, its princess, and a people who had taught her that true strength comes not from power alone, but from the willingness to stand together. And so, as stars wheeled overhead, a human soldier carried the promise of a new era across the Silver Sea, a promise that would guide both worlds through whatever challenges lay ahead, forging a future brighter than any dawn. The end.